Hey everyone, how's it going this week? Hope everyone's had a good week so far. We're going to be going over some WebDAV stuff and as well as looking at the Python in Excel. I don't know if anyone's seen that yet, but we're going to be combining the two just to see. So let me open this first and we'll go over what the Python Excel is. But we're going to poke around with Python Excel. I've updated my version. So now it's a new feature, and I'll show you the thing in a second. Formulas, there we go. So now, how do I zoom in? Won't let me zoom in. I can zoom in this, but oh well, apologies. But if you look up here on the top, you can see I have this insert Python thing now. So let me just pull up the announcement from Microsoft. But as a replacement to macros, they are now having Python code executable within Excel files, but it's not executing in the local Excel. It's out in the cloud. So and like you can see in the top stories, like they just rolled this out to Microsoft 365 for business and all that stuff, but it is all in the cloud, and ostensibly Microsoft has things that are there for security. So I figured we'd poke around at it and see if we find anything interesting in regards to like, do we think there may be any vulnerabilities in this? But I know that it's running, like I poked around a little bit already, that it is running like a full kind of Docker container image, like it's some kind of Linux, like Jupyter Notebook type of thing. And we'll take a look at that like as we go on. But the first thing I was going to do is like set up WebDAV. And if you've never heard of WebDAV, it's like a way of hosting a file share on the internet. So it has like an HTTP, HTTPS address, but you can mount it like in Windows if you want to. You can mount it like an actual share drive. But Python actually supports the ability to treat WebDAV files as like local files. So it also has some interesting, like just the ability to retrieve data and files as if they're on disk for Python without actually having to have them local. So I figured I'd walk you guys through set up a WebDAV server. Unfortunately, WebDAV has kind of been deprecated. It's not. It's supposed to be going away, but like lots of things in tech, we'll see if they actually goes away. So yeah, let's see when's it supposed to be being deprecated. Yeah, so WebDAV is supposed to be going away like soon, or has already. Yeah, they said they deprecated it last year, but a lot of the stuff is still working. Yeah, so see, it's still local. It's just, or it's still in Windows. It's just not started by default. So we still use WebDAV with like a few caveats and stuff, but we'll walk through that. Yeah, Python sandbox escape. That's what we're gonna look at. We're gonna so that was the long rambling way to get at. Depending on how they've set up their rules, you'll see that like if we try to do like just a straight like web request in Python in the Microsoft Excel, like for the Python in Excel stuff. I was trying to say Excel for macros instead of in combining with Python. That it's like says that it's forbidden, like there's a policy blocking it, but WebDAV may have some different option, or may have some different configurations because of like where it's going through. And then obviously the container has to be capable of reaching out to the internet in some way, otherwise we wouldn't be able to send data to and from it. So there's some options there, like we kind of look at like what ports may be open and those kinds of things on the box if we can get the code executing properly. And so we'll see. I doubt we'll I doubt it'll be simple enough as us spending an hour or two poking around on it during the stream that we will like find some major escape. But I figure it'd be fun since it's like a brand new feature that they just rolled out to mainstream yesterday to poke around with it some. Yeah. Yeah, so the WebDAV stuff will be interesting if we can get it working. But the first thing we got to do that I'll walk you guys through, and I'll drop the commands in for you guys if you want it, is actually delete this instance, is go set up a WebDAV server in the cloud. And so we'll go launch a new one. So for this, it's like really simple. We're just, all you need is a Ubuntu box. And you can just use any of the web servers, like the free tier. You can go use Azure if you want. Yeah. And we just want to make sure we allow HTTPS and HTTP. And then we'll go ahead and launch the instance. We're using existing key pair. So while that's starting up, where'd my... Yeah, a WebSocket connection out or something like might be interesting. We'll have to play around with it while it's launching and just kind of see what. Why did my instance not launch? Oh, there it goes. Okay, so well, like I do know, like having played with it, like we can do like import OS. Not that way. I will say that typing in this little tiny box they give you is a huge pain because they let you import all kinds of stuff, and but like you only ever get this tiny box to do like your IDE in, so it's definitely like a pain to manipulate it. I apologize, guys, if I can figure out how to zoom in on this, I will, but it's not letting me right now. Oh, here, I know one thing I can do. I can reduce my display settings. That's not what I want. Okay, hopefully that's yeah, there we go. That looks like it's a little more readable. Here like if we just run something simple like this OS get like our current directory, it'll run, and then we actually get a return. So this gives us that we're in the yeah. Also the way it, like auto starts doing that when we try to click out of things is really annoying. No, I don't want to do that. Yeah, so we can see that we're in app, and if we want to like list everything in there, we can just do like a list of the current directory. So like that did not work how I wanted it to. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's the output's a little weird, but so you can see that there's actually like a number of files in here that we can look at, which is kind of interesting. So like one of our options is we can create like a DF, like a data frame. The way that they work is there's like these data frames that you can create. When you print the data frame, it'll actually like look a little better. But let's go ahead and finish setting up our WebDAV server should be up and running now. So we'll go ahead and our instance should be up and running. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we just need our instance IP address. So we're just SSH to the box. If you never SSH to an AWS box, one thing to note is that you can't SSH directly as sudo, which is really annoying. But you can you can still run all your sudo commands without a password. So let's see. Yeah, so I just getting to the questions. I saw this ask. So I'll demonstrate that in a second. If you try to write a file to the disk, in here, it gives you an access denied. Like if you try to do like a like this, and then we try to like just at least last time when I was trying this last night to prep for this, yeah, we get like a error. Wait, that should have. File should automatically create the file if it doesn't exist, right? Does anyone remember? I thought if the file doesn't exist, it would automatically. Oh, I opened it as read, not write. Hopefully. Yeah, there we go. See, you get a permission denied. So it's not quite that easy. I haven't tried yet, like writing to the existing files on disk to see if we can mess with the files that are already on disk in there. Because like when we did that, when I did the list, you saw there were like a handful of items on the disk. But we'll, like I said, we'll come back to it. I keep jumping around, but we'll. So it's set up the WebDAV just so that we can try this as a different web request. Close that. Okay. So I just have like some pre-made commands. 1 second, I get pinged. Oh, not what I meant to do. Nope, not the wrong file. Here we go. So first things first, if you're gonna follow along. So no, someone asked, can you access other Excel files? No, you can't. That's one of the limitations. You have to use Power Query if you want to do that, which is a whole different tool that you can integrate into your Python scripts, but they do not allow native access to other Excel files, or at least it's not supposed to. We could try and find ways potentially, but it is not supposed to allow you to do that. Which is like one of the things that I'm hoping we can achieve with like the WebDAV stuff once we get it up and running. Yeah, so we just install the Apache server, which is pretty straightforward. And then we're gonna go edit our one second, I totally forgot my file path name. Sorry, one second. I lost part of my notes, disappeared on me. There we go. Sorry about that. So we're going to our sites available. If you do an LS, there's just this default config, and we're just going to modify this. Alternatively, we could set up like another config file for like a WebDAV specific site, but I usually just end up editing this config file instead. So if we just go ahead and modify this. So we open it, you'll see that we have this virtual host *80. This is telling it what ports we're going to be starting everything on. It already has this like webmaster thing, but all we're going to do is like go down and add a new entry, which you can do it kind of anywhere in this log, but I usually just do it at the end here. So we are going to use like a real, I have an actual domain that we've purchased that we use for these kinds of things, because we're gonna, and one of the limitations on using WebDAV is by default Microsoft will block WebDAV if you don't have an SSL cert. So we need to be able to get a cert from certbot. So we're going to be using that for our WebDAV. So to start with, all we're gonna have is the port 80, just to make sure that we're testing things properly. And then we're just going to restart our Apache service so that it'll use that configuration. I should have sudo, but I don't know why it asked for a password. That's weird. There we go. And then I'm just gonna, so these boxes on here. So the problem with Nginx you can use. Yeah, I've used Nginx. I'm also just lazy. I usually just stand up a server like this, but Nginx you could use. Ngrok you used to be able to use, and it's not that hard to use, but they're kind of a pain. I'm just going to install NetTools. Ugh, I keep forgetting to do sudo. But I need to, but yeah, I could use Nginx just so that we always had the WebDAV server up, but so we'll see if so we're listening on port 80. So to confirm that we have like this working, we can just copy our IP address, which that is a different IP address than our actual public IP address. And if we browse to it, we should, yeah. So we're not hosting anything here as of yet. So like we're open on port 80, we can get to our WebDAV server. So if you don't want to spend the time to get a cert, here, let me just I'm lazy. Wait, what? I should be able to create a file here. Why is that not working? I can try sudo su, but that shouldn't matter. I just did this, so I'm not sure why it's not working. I might need to stop the Apache service, but I should be able to. Oh, whoops. Whatever. There we go. So if we go back just to double check. Yeah. Okay, so I should have it configured right now where so this should fail right now with station. Because Microsoft should, my Windows box should block it, but we'll find out in a second. That's right, you do it like this. Like I said, Windows should block this, but it's trying now. So yeah, I'm guessing it got blocked. It's taking so long. Yeah, so it failed because we can't reach out. But if I go, I have to go open one of our, it's my display, I gotta go open the registry key. Okay. So local machine, oh, why is this so large? Hold on. Local machine and then system, current control set. Services, web client. There we go. And then if we change this basic auth level to 2, then we won't need an SSL cert and it'll start working. So we should be able to do that. And then if we run this, should theoretically work now. I might have to restart the Windows machine or the Python PowerShell window. It is a little slow, even when it does work. Oh, thank you. Thank you, not paying it. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, so now it works. So now if we do like file.read, we managed to pull it off of the server now without actually doing like a web request. So this is like a really nice way of pulling stuff down. I've done this before to like bypass certain content stuff like that may block like Python from doing like a web request. This doesn't get treated as a web request; it gets treated as like an SMB or something else that's like supposed to be coming from the box. So it's like a nice way of circumventing some of the DLP stuff. Because you can also write to locations this way as well, as long as you have the folder configuration set up, which I obviously did since we had to be root, but you can go change that. So now that we kind of have that, we'll go ahead and like grab our cert real quick. But yeah, let me validate. Thanks for catching that typo. If we change this to 1, this should theoretically not work anymore. Yeah, so now it'll fail because we set this back to 1. So we have to have a cert in order for it to work. So we'll go over to, I'll copy this. So like mercyhospital.net is one that we've had for like a year now that we use because it's classified as a healthcare domain. So that means like a lot of firewalls and stuff won't man in the middle of your HTTPS traffic because it's an exemption for HIPAA and private and like GDPR concerns and stuff. So it's always nice to have one of these on hand, and they're super cheap. Also, Mercy Hospital is like I live in St. Louis in the Midwest, and Mercy Hospital is actually a legitimate um, healthcare group. Like a lot of people's healthcare is with Mercy Hospital in our area. So seeing Mercy Hospital on it, like for local companies, is like really, it's like a nice way of doing stuff. And sometimes this takes a few minutes to propagate, but a lot of times it's really quick. So we can always do like a NS lookup. Yep. So we got like a non-authoritative answer, but we got, yep. So it looks like it's already propagating. So we should be able to. Maybe not quite yet. Um, Well, we'll go play with the. So we don't have one yet, or we don't have the cert yet, but this is based on like the file architecture structure and stuff. This does appear to be like a Linux box, which doesn't always have that restriction on being able to reach out. So we can try it and see what happens. That's not what I want to do. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, so let's see what happens when we run this. Yeah, so it's getting blocked, or it's at least not allowing it without the cert. So, like it was a good try, but we're at least not getting a permission denied. Which, like, if we do a web request, we should. I'm just gonna check on if this is propagating yet. I shouldn't need to do /WebDAV, but let's try. I tested this last night. Why isn't it working? Oh, here. It might be trying to connect to over a secure connection. That might be why. Huh. We can still get here. Okay, let's go back and make sure that I have everything configured properly here. Yeah, it should just go straight. It should work. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. Let's poke around on this a little more. So we know that there's like we got a list of files, so let's try doing our list directory again and actually seeing what we have here. So I know pulling these before because they were interesting last time. Oh, copied the whatever. That this entry point one has some interesting information in it. So let's just read that and see what we get. We should be able to read that. We might have to put it into a data frame, which is annoying. Okay. Pretty sure you can do that. Okay, we'll try this instead. So it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't like it when you try to dump stuff directly. Yeah, there we go. For some reason, it doesn't like it when you try to dump things directly, like from a function call, like whatever they're doing to format it. It doesn't like that for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but so sometimes you have to dump it in a variable and then just like print the variable. So it's like we can actually pull some interesting stuff now from like the box. So like we are able to retrieve data from this box. We couldn't write to the app folder. We can try changing our folders and seeing if there's a folder that we do have permission to write to. So like we are getting somewhere, right? There's some interesting things that we're finding out here. Let me zoom in on this. The biggest one being that they have some HTTP proxy that looks like it's intended to make requests fail. Instead of waiting like the full 90 seconds to time out, it's supposed to just drop them. But they note that that this isn't really a secure, that this HTTP proxy is not responsible for preventing the web requests from failing. It's just there as like a convenience. They're saying that it is the actual finally blocked by the network security group is what is actually blocking our calls. So that's why like the WebDAV still appears to like take the full time, like 90 seconds to time out and then give us like the file isn't found, is because it's not getting picked up by the proxy. But the network security group is still blocking it. But like I said, we know that there's some kind of internet connection. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to send our Python code to it and then receive it back. So like the next step would be to either try and find a place that we can write to, or start looking through some of these other scripts, which I've looked through, but there doesn't seem to be that much in them. But the other interesting thing, oh, maybe it's not in this one. We might have to read one of the other ones. there was a note in another one of these scripts that I already enumerated that basically noted that this machine stays up until the Excel session closes. So that means like we do have some things running. Another thing that I know is working is subprocess, which means we can open subprocesses and potentially run bash commands. I haven't been able to retrieve the output because of the way it's capturing standard out on the code interfaces. It doesn't seem to be working like properly. But that's another thing we could push and see if like, because I don't know if the because you'll get a note when you up here, like you'll see, because I've been sending like tons of requests that are limit exceeded. Like I had like when you first open this developer feature, it gives you access to like the fast version. And then after so many requests, it tells you that you don't have your limit has exceeded for the fast version of your Python calculations. Otherwise, and if you want to go faster, you'll have to pay now. So I don't know. I haven't been able to figure out yet. Are those limitations in the Python code? Because you can see, like from what we listed, that Office Pi seems to be its own thing. I've tried enumerating this. There's like a lot of files in there. It overflows when you try to like dump all of the files in Office Pi. Like we can try it real quick just to see, just for fun, see what happens. But so I think maybe the limitations on like computation may just be like in the actual Office Pi program that they're running that allows us to connect. In which case, that means like if we're able to initiate a sub process that's running outside of that through like the bash, like from an interesting like thing that we could report to Microsoft, like maybe we are able to get like some resource abuse going where we can circumvent their kind of intentional throttling on your processing speeds. Now, it also may be that they just give you a certain number of like CPU cycles or something, and once you've exceeded that, they like downgrade you to a smaller like Jupyter Notebook image or whatever. Like they may be throttling it that way, but given that like this limit exceeded thing came up in the same session and I didn't notice it closing, I'm not sure that's what's actually happening. So we'll see. But I am going to take a second here to pour a drink. I'm going to be finishing off, or well, maybe not. This is a cool bottle that I got that's called Old Kirk. If you've heard of the Willet Distillery, this is like a single barrel from them that was sold under a different brand. There had been like 4 or 5 years where not a lot of Willet single barrels had come out, and this was one of the first single barrels that got re-released. They weren't supposed to, for the whiskey geeks, like they weren't supposed to actually disclose what distillery this distillate came from for this bottle, but not that you guys will be able to read it. But on the label, where's my thing? If you can right there, it gives the mash bill. And the mash bill that's reported on here, there's only one distillery in the country that uses that mash bill, and it's Willet. So even though the NDA and like all the stuff agreements that this company made to say that they wouldn't disclose it was Willet, they like circumvented it by putting the mash bill on there because it didn't prohibit them from disclosing the mash bill of the distillate. And there's only one distillery that makes it, so that's how everyone figured it out. But so yeah, so we'll let's just try our list directory and see what happens. Oh, it actually did print this time. Interesting. So I must have enumerated a different one. There's an SSL file here, so think we've got any interesting SSL creds that we can steal? Oh, I didn't like that. Oh, I probably need the. Wait, or is that not a? Is that a file? Oh no, I just forgot the slash on it. Oh, duh! I'm an idiot. So it's a because I learned this last time. It's a persistent Python. It's not running a new Python process every time you execute code this way. It's a persistent Python interpreter. So we're already when I was trying to go back into the Office Pi, we already changed the current directory to Office Pi, and Office Pi is not a file in our current directory. So we just need to just like I assumed that it was like every time you sent a request, it was like a new Python. Um, like it would run the Python code, close it down, then open an interpreter again, and that's not what it is. It's a persistent interpreter. So any changes we make, so like also theoretically, we should be able to define variables like one call at a time, and then like reuse those variables as we go on because they should be in the interpreter's memory since it's a persistent interpreter. Hmm. We got a PEM file. Let's read it. Huh? What does that mean? Huh? We're getting an Excel error, not a Python error trying to do this. That's weird. Hmm. Well, let's try reading the OpenSSL config instead then and see what happens. Okay, so we were successful there. See if there's any interesting notes in here for our config. So this is just an OpenSSL example. Yeah, this just looks like boilerplate standard config. Yeah, there's nothing interesting in that one. Let's see if this is propagated yet. There we go. Okay, so now that this is working, we can go grab a cert and see if we're just being blocked because we didn't have a TLS cert. Yeah, this probably, I don't think this has certbot installed. Yeah. Okay. Oh, whoops. Forgot a flag. No, I don't want to get more spam from you. Okay, cool. So we'll just copy these real quick. So we need them in a second. Oh, 1 second. What? Sorry about that, guys. I clicked the wrong button. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to add in our we're going to add a virtual host for our 443 port. And then add in our new configuration. Let's do this. Hold on. Certificate and then private key. Okay. We just gotta restart our server. Okay, and then just verify that everything is running. Let's see. Theoretically, we should be able to. Sweet. So that's going, and if we verify now where it was blocking our file request before, hopefully it works. Yep, and we. Yep, cool. So we've got all that working now. So we try again and see if it makes a difference here, which I don't think it's going to, but okay. Nope, we're still getting blocked. Okay, so I'm assuming that we're just getting blocked by the rules that they have in place then. Oh, not what I meant. So we do have another, this looks like a non-standard file. Okay. So let's try this CT log and see what it gets us. Nope. Okay, so this might be a dead end. We might want to go back up a folder. Actually, we're gonna go up. We're gonna try the home folder and see what we get there. Yeah, so we get two different things here. Let's also see. Let's try going into app and see if we actually have permissions to write anything here. So let's just get those first. That's interesting. Did it not let us go into that folder? Oh, whoops. And it does give us this nice. I forgot how I get. Is it current directory? Yeah, there we go. Why is this? Probably using the wrong command. Oh, git. That's what it is. Okay, so we are in this, so we should be able to do a. I wonder why it didn't let us list the directories. String object is not callable. Huh. Okay, well, let's try writing a file here and see what happens. Because if we could start writing files into this, then we can start doing some interesting things like closing out and see if our file is still there to see if we get like a persistent image. Don't have permissions, so we might not have write permissions anywhere. I know the best way to list what our current permissions are. Yeah, so let's just see what our name is, like who we actually are. I think we're Jovian, but which is like Jupyter implementation. We can also try get groups and see what we get, what we are. I forget what that means in here. Let's see what get groups gets us. Linux internals are definitely a weak point for me, so some of this might not be. Here, let's try this. I'm just using ChatGPT to quickly generate something that might be of interest to us. Okay. And print doesn't seem to work in this, by the way. I tried that earlier. It didn't really work. Why is it only giving me one? Okay, here, we're gonna do this. It only lets us review the last line of code. Or last line output, so we're gonna have to put it into a data frame. Yeah, we can try doing like a sub process and running like OS execute ls tech, but I haven't been able to capture that output. That's the only problem with like trying to run like this command, is I haven't been able to capture the output when I've tried running those OS commands. Like I'm not getting errors about them not running. I never get the returns from them. Sorry, I'm reading how to use pandas. So this is, hold on, wrong file. So this is how this is like what everything's being that you're supposed to use for manipulating all the data within Python and Excel is this pandas frame. So there's just, I'm just reading this to figure out how we're supposed to create the data frame. So I think we can do it like this, hopefully. Let me bring that back up. So we're going to create a data frame like this and just see what our outputs are. So df equals p dot data frame. I'm sure there's probably a more elegant way at doing this, but I'm not the most elegant coder. Okay, so we have permissions to read and execute. So if we can find something to execute on the disk that we can actually start. Oh, no. I have no idea how you escape this once you've started typing without like submitting the code again. Like it doesn't let you escape. It's really annoying. So we can read and execute, which I have a feeling is true across the whole machine. But if we could find a folder that's not that's true, then we'd have something to start working with. So we can write a script that enumerates this whole drive and see anywhere. We could also go check the Jovian directory, which would be like probably the next place to start. I think is how you spell it. Let's check over here again. Oh my God. Oh, we have write permissions in the Jovian folder. Okay, so we can start writing something to disk now. Okay. So we're getting somewhere. Okay, that's a good sign. We didn't get an error. So now if we do an ls, we should, if we do a list directory, we should actually get CR file. Yep. So we are able to write to disk within our. Why not write all the code into a notepad paste? That would be a much smarter way of doing it. I don't know. I just am stubborn, and so I keep doing it this way. But you're right. It would be much smarter to write it in here. But so we now have the ability to write there. So we could look for somewhere else to write in. We could start looking for cron jobs, but What I'm more interested in now that we've written a file to disk is to close out Excel and reopen it and see if how long the session's static for, because it could be an interesting way to store data and retrieve it if we can keep things here. Obviously, the thing that we want to be able to do the most is find an escape for this. So let's before we do that, just I have this script. We'll just see what open ports we have on the. Oh. Okay. Oh my god. Because it has to be a keyboard shortcut to escape this. There's no way that I have to submit it every time. There has to be a command to, like a keyboard shortcut to escape out of the. Okay, there's a. Oh, we can reset the Python runtime ourselves. Okay. Does F2, will F2 allow us to escape? Okay, there has to be a way to escape this without entering the code. If anyone knows it. Control-Shift-U. So could you connect to the local connection with a notebook? I don't know. We'll have to figure out. No, Control-Shift-U did not work. I can't put the. It has to be simple. It shouldn't be this hard. What does Control-Shift-Enter do? Nope, that still submitted it. So we had that script that told us that this is probably our. Whoops. That the 8000 is probably that's our HTTP proxy. But there's this 5002 and 888 that are interesting. The rest are local addresses. But so maybe what's the? It's not. What's the command to list open ports in PowerShell? Oh, you thought Control-Shift-U would show more code? No, it's not useful. Let's see. I don't think I have this installed. Let's try. No, I don't have a corresponding port open. I thought maybe we'd have a port that matches up if it was like a persistent connection, but it doesn't look like it. Yeah, but this is definitely something to like, we'll keep this somewhere else. No, we want the whole, all the data for like future investigation. Yeah, but, well, actually, I'm going to try. So let's see if we, because it has that thing for, it has the keyboard shortcut for resetting our Python environment. Control Alt Shift F9. Let's see if that resets like the file we also did. Yeah, so our file is gone. So that Control Alt Shift F9 resets the whole environment. So that like reboots basically gets us a new container. So we can control that. So we now know that. So that's, so let's put another file there and then just let's close out our Excel and reopen it and see if that also resets our container. Just to get an idea of what kind of persistence we have. All right, so that's there. So let's close this real quick. So what would be really nice to find is like some kind of other file that's used for monitoring like the resources that we're using or something like that, that allows us to see what they're monitoring. I don't know that we're going to find that. Okay, yeah, so that reset our environment too, closing out. So the containers are not persistent across like closing, and which isn't surprising because that would be like a lot of resources if they were keeping them persistent for any amount of time. But it does give us some more information on where we could go on what we may or may not be able to do. So Oh, whoops, it's not a Python file. That's why. So sub-processes, from what I can tell, do work, especially since like I showed, like when we were checking those permissions, it looks like we have execute permissions. I just haven't been able to figure out how to retrieve the output from it. That's because of the way they're doing their outputs, like they're capturing outputs, I haven't been able to figure out how you retrieve the sub-process output. That's the only thing that's the major limitation processes stuff. And I would wager, just based on how like a lot of containers work, that like a lot of standard tools like curl and that kind of stuff aren't actually installed on these boxes. So that may or may not work. Yeah, we can try running a sub process of http.server and see what happens. Yeah, because we can run it on a weird port that we can check the open ports and run the, yeah, we can try that and see what happens. To output the browser. I'm not following, but we can do. Um, 1 second. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember how. It's been a while since I've used subprocessor. I'm awful at remembering what the commands are for processes. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So I know you can like technically enter it as like one line in subprocesses, but I feel like I've always had better success chunking the actual commands into the individual arguments. Okay. Oh. Oh, so we have a, okay. That's certainly interesting. So now let's run our open ports again and see if we have a persistent process running. Because that's definitely interesting if we have a persistent process running. What's also interesting is like PS utils and stuff is installed on these, which are not a standard library to be installed as part of Python. So they have a bunch of additional standard libraries libraries installed for the Python code. Come on. Oh, so so we do have a persistent process. Our port's open now. So we do have a persistent process running in this machine. So that is definitely interesting. So now we just got to figure out how to be able to access it. That's if we can figure out how to reach the box, we have something going here. So that's definitely interesting. Like really interesting that we can get a persistent process running. Because I wonder if that shouldn't hold the box open. I'm assuming that when we break the connection from our box, that the box will stop running. But so I wonder if I have Apache listen on 5002, if we can connect out from that. I think the 5002 socket might be open in our permissions. So let's just see if it's still running. Yep. That's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. So we'll have to see. How do we get how do we retrieve our own IP address? We could try a sub process with ifconfig and see what happens. Like I said, I've had trouble getting the return, but let's see if we can run an ifconfig and see what happens. They have all incoming processes blocked. Okay, I'm being lazy and having ChatGPT tell me how to get it. Yeah, so ifconfig's not installed. We can try an apt install and see what happens. But I would wager that we don't have permissions for that. Or what are the chances that they don't have sudo? They don't have sudo a password on sudo. Here, let's try something real quick. Because if we do you think they have bash installed? Oh, IPA is a new way to get. We can try it. I didn't know IP was a new way of getting it, but I wonder what the chances are that they have. Uh, uh, so we know we don't have write permissions in home app. We already tried that. it capital C or lowercase c? I always forget. Hold on 1 second. Right, that looks right, doesn't it? I guess we just use run instead of, yeah, we just use run instead of popen. Right, is that? Yeah, we'll do popen because that's the one I usually use. They don't have sudo installed. Ah, unfortunate. That would have been really nice if sudo was installed. That's a bummer. We can try su, right? Su is the proper one in some. Is it su sudo? I forget how to use su. Here, let's try. Because I didn't actually check. That's not useful. Does anyone know what that means? So it's Windows subsystem for Linux kernel, it looks like. Okay, let's see if we can run an apt install. I think that's what I'm going back to seeing if we can install, if we do an apt install like sudo and see what happens. We could try pip install, but I don't think you can pip install sudo, right? That doesn't get us elevated permissions. Hmm. We can try su root and see what happens, but you typically need a password for root for that. Yeah, so it was waiting for a password and it didn't get one. Okay, we can try this command real quick and just see. Huh. So it worked when we ran our Python code, but like nothing else is working, which is interesting. And our Python is still persistent. We can double check that. Yeah, so our server is still up and running. I'll have to take a look at this. Hack tricks bypass Python sandboxes. We're not in a sandbox though. We're in a like a Jupyter notebook. So like we can run the commands. It's just that there's a lot of these containers have like nothing installed on them. Like it's something we run into when we're building ranges. Like a lot of them have like when you just get the basic image, there's like nothing installed on it. Although I haven't seen one that doesn't have apt installed, which is apt not being installed is a little weird. Yeah, so like let's see what happens if we try just doing an ls through ps ops. We just might not have anything in here. And we know there's stuff in the Jovian folder. Oh, maybe we can't run stuff. Let's see. Let me try one other thing. Yeah, the page does have a lot of good examples. I have it open on. So for people, it has like a bunch of examples for testing stuff. So we know we can import functions and stuff. So like ls should be working, and we can read these. So like we know that these are working. Etsy password is going to be. I mean, we could try it real quick, just see what happens. Huh. That actually, I didn't expect that to actually return anything useful. I don't think it really did though. Oops. Yeah, we can try reading the Etsy shadow file and see where, if the password's stored anywhere. But we didn't really get much useful out of this. Yeah. Yeah, we're already running bash. But this is who we are right now. Like I know we're doing this. And we're able to run, and we have interactive login. I'm trying to think of what else. Let's see. I assume this is going to give us an access denied, but why not? Let's try it. Yeah, permission denied. I assumed so, but trying to think. We're getting into the closing minutes of the stream, so you guys have any examples you want me to try before we go? We'll definitely play with it. I mean, it's pretty interesting that we managed to at least get a persistent process going. I'll have to play around some more with, like, what can we possibly have? What can we possibly have installed? Because I think that's our major limitations. There's just a lot of tools that aren't installed on it. But it seems like we have essentially the entire Python library available to us, which is nice. Is there a way to pass Sue with the password? That's what I'm trying to remember. Well, so we essentially have persistence. The problem is that as soon as like we close this connection, the box gets blown away, and so like it doesn't really matter because that instance of the box is gone forever. But we definitely have code execution, so we can run code in there, which is definitely interesting. Um, and we have access back to this Excel. We could potentially make so like one thing that we could do, depending on like how you want to abuse this, is you could write a VBA macro to go along with this that reads the return, since we figured out that we can have a persistent process, like especially if you're trying to do some kind of abuse, is you can have a VBA that retrieves the return data in the Excel from the box to you, and then you'd have a way to flow the data out that way. But we don't have any way to use the box as like a pivot to reach out somewhere to like a different endpoint or something like that yet, which is what we really need. Like if we could figure out like how the commands are sent back to this XL instance and figure out like if we can change which like the endpoint that it's reaching back to for the XL, so like we could have another XL that we could switch to, like then we could start doing interesting things. but we'll have to explore that in more depth going like later on. But I think the fact that we've proven that you can get a persistent execution like is pretty interesting. Because I'm pretty sure if you like if we just write like a while loop, it eventually cuts it off. Oh, we might be able to pass. Can we let's see if we have access to pexpect. We don't. Okay, so let's try. Oh, let's just see what happens. So it's not pre-populated, but let's see if we run this command. Let's just see what happens when we run that. Oh, so we do have access to pexpect. So like I said, it looks like they have everything installed from the Python library. Like they just have everything. What's the return of 5 mean? Oh, it says that it timed out. The 5 means it timed out. Okay, yeah, we'll have to figure this out at another time. But that's interesting. Yep, have a good one. Thanks for coming, everyone. I will see you next week, hopefully. If not in 2 weeks, but have a good night. Thanks for coming.